This is Nat with the Other Side Nursery. Today we'll be talking about string of pearls, or Curio rowleyanus. It used to be called Senecio rowleyanus, but they've reclassified that. They always reclassify things, so we just have to kind of keep up with whatever they're called at the moment. But string of pearls, we'll call it that today. So with this one, this specific one is a variegated one, so you might see little shades of white here and there, but generally the more common ones are just solid green. In nature, they're found in southern Africa. They're found underneath shrubs, trees. They're ground cover. It's a ground cover type of plant in let's say captivity. In captivity, they're grown in hanging baskets just because they display a lot better, and of course no one really has all that room for a string of pearls to spread in their house, so growing them in hanging baskets is perfectly fine as long as you're kind of giving them what they need, but we'll cover that in a minute. Let's talk about their size. They can grow pretty long. I've seen maybe about 3-4 feet or so in hanging baskets. I've never seen them growing in the wild before, and I haven't seen anyone actually using it in their yard. Well, I've seen pictures of it, but I haven't seen like the full scale of how far they will spread. I would assume they'll keep on spreading indefinitely. If you actually know, please let me know also, but I'm very curious as to how they'll be growing as a ground cover as they do in the wild. So the hardiness, they can be hardy down to maybe 35 degrees or so, as long as the soil is on the drier end. I actually kept mine outside during winter time in the Portland area, or winter time is not terrible. The coldest that it gets would be like 15 degrees Fahrenheit, but usually we remain around like 35 or so at night, around 45 during the daytime, but it does rain a lot, so there's that. But yeah, I kept mine pretty dry and it survived winter. It lost some of the little leaf ball thing, but the stem itself survived and it continued growing the next year. I'm not saying it looked pretty or presentable, but it did survive. But for everyone else, I would recommend you just keeping it around 45 or above that. They do not like too much heat. Keep in mind, they are ground covers that are grown underneath shrubs and bushes and stuff like that. So they generally, naturally don't want all that crazy heat. So lighting for them, once again, they're grown underneath bushes, so that kind of gives you an idea that they don't want crazy bright light. And if you look closely at them, I'll kind of pluck I'll pluck one out. If you look closely at their, where's the camera? At their leaves, there we go, please adjust. If you look, hold on, what's that? There we go. If you look closely at their leaf, you'll see this little slit over here. It's a lot more transparent than the rest of the bean thing itself. So a lot of succulents, when they have those little window things, it indicates that they don't like much light. Stuff like Haworthias, they have that little window thing. So it's just to help them gather the light enough so that they can continue producing their chlorophyll. But anything with the little see-through window, just assume that it doesn't need that much light. But less light does not mean no light. So whenever I talk about lighting, I like to talk about natural lighting. I like to recommend people going with morning sun and then going into the afternoon. With noon sun, it's a little bit too bright for most plants, so it'll kind of fry them up. But if you acclimate your plants starting from morning sun, it can handle all day sun as long as it gets that first morning and easing itself into that afternoon light. But either way, I would recommend about 3 to 5 hours or so of morning sun, or starting in the morning. You can have dappled light for them. They actually prefer all day dappled light, but if you have to expose it to one window, try going with the eastern window or like the eastern part of the house. They will appreciate that a lot more than the western. If you have a southern exposure, that's great, as long as it kind of gets shielded around noontime, or like the hottest part of the day, which is usually around 3-4 o'clock or so. So going on to water. With water, they require a little bit more water than a lot of succulents do. Not all succulents are the same. Keep that in mind. So whenever I talk about succulents, try not to assume that everything is just kind of under one bubble. Succulents, they're from all over the place in the world, so they can be, or they should be, treated different. But either way, with this one, since they are a vining plant and we're kind of not allowing the rest of the root area to touch water, it does appreciate a little bit more water than what you would water your other succulents. So maybe water it like 2 times a week or so. Let the soil dry out slightly, but not completely, because that just damages the roots, and then it'll be even harder for the plant to reroot itself and try to absorb extra water. So keep the soil not too dry, slightly moist, and the main reason for that is because the rest of the roots are not touching the ground. So whatever root is touching the soil has to work extra hard to get water to the rest of the plant. So keep the soil. You can keep the soil moist as long as it's warmer and it's getting all that light. If it's not getting as much light, you can cut down on the water a little bit more. When you start seeing the little ball pearl thing shrivel up, that's a good indication that you need to water it. But if you just go with just feeling it out, you can even do the lift and feel how heavy the pot is to see if you need to water. So in short, just kind of feel the soil out. If it feels dry to the touch, you can water it again. If the pot is really big and holding water, maybe wait a little bit longer. But string of pearls, they appreciate more water, especially when they're growing in a hanging fashion like this. With a soil mix, you can go with standard potting soil, adding a little bit of pumice, perlite, or anything that helps it drain. When in doubt, go with succulent mix. That's always a good go-to with these guys, just because they are technically succulents and they want that extra water, but they want that water to just kind of flush right out of the pot. Common diseases for them. So other than rot, sometimes I do see mealybugs, but nothing too crazy, just a standard rot or mealybugs. If you get mealybugs, start off by using alcohol just to kind of wipe it off, see where it goes from there. With the rotting thing, it has to do with water. Either not enough light or not enough water. Once again, the common mistake is letting it go dry out too fast and watering it, and they can't handle all that water because the root has already been damaged, and then it starts to rot. So try to get that good light and a continuous flow of water if you can, but not too much. Propagation method. So if you do want to propagate it, you can cut it by the stem. I'll just do it on this one. Cut a good stem like this. If you do see little roots coming down already, that's great. You don't have to go with a stem with roots, but it is a little bit more helpful when it has a little bit of root growing. If you do place it in a pot. Maybe get 4 or 5 of these. Just kind of lay them down on the soil line. You don't have to cover it too much. You can just kind of lay it down. You can use something to kind of hold it down a little bit so that it's laying down onto the soil, so that it's touching the soil. But it'll start rooting itself after a couple of weeks or so. When you touch it, sorry, I don't have a good example right now, but when you touch it and it feels stuck, that's when you know that it's been rooted pretty well. But yeah, so if you have any other questions regarding anything, it can be any random thing, please feel free to email me at info@theothersidenursery or give us a call at 971-754-9013. Thank you very much.